What's up, guys? How's it going? It's John. This video I want to talk about something that I don't usually talk about on my show very often. That is politics, because I know it's kind of a hot button topic, right? Because there's people who have opinions on both sides, and certainly I'm not going to claim that I'm right necessarily, but I'll tell you kind of how I feel, and I hope that we can have a respectful discussion back and forth in the comment section, that we can all agree to disagree if that comes to that, but that we're not going to put each other down for a differing opinion. I think that's not really cool, to be honest. So, my question to you guys, I want to pose to you guys, of course, is: do you think that video games is causing these mass shootings and these mass gun-based issues with mass shootings? Recently, as many of you heard, I'm sure, there was a mass shooting in Florida where 17 people were tragically killed. And it's devastating, and it's an issue that obviously we have here in the States. It's not exclusive to the States, of course. I know there's been some shootings up in Canada and the rest of the world, but it seems to happen more so in the States than anywhere else in the world. And so a lot of people who may not know much about video games tend to point the finger to video games and saying, well, it's these games like Call of Duty and these games that are where you shoot people are causing people to become more immune to killing, and maybe that's what's causing them to kill these people and go to school and do this. I strongly disagree with that. I think 99.9% of the people who play video games and who watch movies and listen to music are not influenced. Don't let those what they do influence their actions, because I think we're all born a clean slate. I think everyone has it in us to have a conscience, whether knowing what is right and wrong. And I believe it's the parents' job, like me and my kids, that I'm going to tell them what is right and wrong. And I really believe at the end of the day, and I know it sounds cheesy saying this, but I think at the end of the day, I think one thing that we can do to help stop this, and I get that mental health is an issue, obviously, and that should be addressed. And there's a lot of red flags. In case of Florida, this guy had ton of red flags, and he should have been flagged and at least provided help, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, people need to be loved, and they need to be known that the people care about them. And people are bullied all the time, which is unfortunate. So in the bottom line, I don't believe that video games cause these violent tragedies. I think unfortunately, it's a scapegoat for people to point the finger to video games or movies or whatever it might be. But I think it's ignorant to say that video games causes violence and people to go out and do these terrible things. I play video games, and in video games I kill things, and like many of us do. And I never ever think about going out and killing people, because I have the thing in me. It tells me what's right and what's wrong to do. And I think a lot of us innately have that in us. And unfortunately, I think people are raised in certain circumstances where maybe they don't feel loved, and that they feel like no matter what they do, they don't really care. And it's really unfortunate. So, we clearly have an issue here in the States. And look, I love the U.S. and I love living here. But we clearly have an issue in the States with guns. And I understand and totally respect our amendments. And, First Amendment's freedom of speech. Second Amendment, of course, is right to bear arms. And then here's the thing to keep in mind with the Second Amendment, when it was written in the 1700s. First off, guns back then were very different than they are now. They were a single-shot musket, so they literally had to powder it up and load the bullet, and it would take like a couple minutes to do that, and then they would fire, right? And the British were invading, and it was an issue. That was an issue, right? Now, I'm sure our forefathers, when they wrote the amendments back then, had no idea that we'd have these extended magazines today, that we'd have these semi-automatic weapons that we have, that can cause mass shootings. So it doesn't really make sense to me that a person can't board a plane because he's on the no-fly, he's on the terrorist list, so to speak, which obviously makes common sense to me that he shouldn't be able to be on a plane, right? But it doesn't make sense that same person who's on that same list can go on and get a gun in the States. That just doesn't. To me, that's common sense. And if you really do some digging as far as what's going on with our politicians today, you see how much the NRA is paying these politicians. Trump made $30 million from the NRA donated to his campaign. So I really encourage you guys, whether you disagree with me or agree with me or whatever, do some digging on your own and look at how much your local politician, if you live here in the States, are getting paid by the NRA. and it's a huge conflict of interest. And it's really sad to say that, when these mass shootings occur, for example, just this year alone, there's been 17 in the States. And I read somewhere since Columbine, since 1999, I think it was Columbine when it happened, right? We're going on the 20th anniversary. So, 1998, I think in a couple months, actually, it's the 20th anniversary. But there's been over 400 mass shootings here in the States, and worldwide there's been like 17. And of those 17, more than half of those have been knife related, not so much gun related. So basically what I'm trying to say is there are people with mental issues all over the world. It's not just in the U.S. But what is the one standing difference between what's happening here in the U.S. and what's happening in the rest of the world is the rest of the world has stricter gun laws. And I'm not saying take away guns. I'm not saying, I go and hunt, whatever, do your thing and that's fine. But I think having background checks, I think having a waiting period, extended waiting period, the fact that this 19-year-old kid in Florida could get a gun in the States is ludicrous to me. And, our politicians will say, oh, thoughts and prayers, and that's great. Thoughts and prayers, that's appreciated. But let's see some action. I want to see some action. And let's stop pointing the fingers to other things. Let's stop pointing the fingers to video games being the cause. Let's stop pointing the finger to movies being the cause. Let's stop pointing fingers to other things. We have a cultural issue here in the States, and the cultural issue is that these people who have these guns shouldn't be having these guns in the first place if they have malintent to do something wrong with those guns. And so I just want to kind of see what you guys think. I'm curious what your thoughts are on guns. For me, I'm certainly pro-gun. I think gun hunting is fine. Nothing wrong with wanting to protect yourself. But the whole notion that, guns don't kill people, people kill people, well, that's true to a point. But guns certainly enable people to kill more people. And if this kid would have gone to the shop and wouldn't be able to purchase this weapon, this rifle, because of his history, the fact that the police were called to his home like 30 plus times, the fact that he had a history of violence, sure, he could have gone to the school, and sure, he could have brought a knife to the school or something else, or drove his car through the school, but would have as many people been hurt? And I think for me, when we start seeing red flags, people with mental illness, we need to provide support for those people. And it's really sad that people feel like this guy it's really sad. His parents had passed away. He had always been picked on as a kid. He just kind of felt like a loner, and he didn't feel like he had anywhere to go. So I really believe at the end of the day, I think people need to be loved. I know at the end of the day that this is a very hot topic, sensitive subject, that people have very strong opinions one way or another, and that's totally fine. I respect for those who are pro-gun. I totally respect that. I respect people who want change. And I think, we are too polarized right now in society, and I feel like there's no common ground to work together. I feel like it's one way or the other, and that's how we are. That's how, at least here in the States, that's how our politicians sure act. And I encourage you guys to do homework. If you live in the States, find out from your politician what their views are. If their views lay as far as pro-gun, that's great, but find out, are they being paid? It's just really sad. And, we had that church shooting last year where, a bunch of people died at church. It's the one place you'd hopefully feel safe here. And it's just scary, because I have young kids myself. And, it's scary to think about when they grow up. They're doing these drills now in school for mass shooting drills, which I never did when I was growing up in school because I never even thought about it. So why are things so changed? And the one thing I also think, I'm going to blame the media here a little bit, because every time something like this happens, they post the picture of the kid or the person who did it, and they almost put his image out there and his name, and everyone wants to know the details. They almost, in some weird sixth sense, these guys who do this, or gals, mainly it's guys, but when they do this, they think they're becoming famous, and they're getting their picture out there and whatnot. They want to kind of do it to become known. Media shouldn't focus on the killers in these cases. They should focus on the victims. And I think society is too nosy, and they want to know why. Like with the Vegas shooting, they want to know why this guy shot into a crowd and killed 50 plus people. The bottom line is we'll probably never know why. And even if we knew why, it's not going to make sense to us anyway, because I think any logical person would figure, can't even think in that same sense that guy was thinking. So it's just really sad, and I'm sad for the victims. I'm sad for our politicians. I'm sad for our leadership here in the country, because I love the States, and I really hope that we can, when these things happen, I hope it's not out of vain. I hope we can learn by it. I hope we can improve, because I think we can do some really great things if we all stick together and work together. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys subscribing and liking this video. We'll see you guys soon. Take care, and game on.